Welcome to Grace Stories. This is Garrett from Grace Community Church. Thank you for joining us again this week and taking the time to watch and listen wherever you may be doing that. This week we have Nick Pomfret. He is the children's director here at Grace Community Church, and I wanted to bring him in just to talk to him a little bit about some of the things that we've experienced, some of the things he's experienced, and maybe some of his thoughts about different things involving children's ministry, not only here at Grace going forward, but just the way the situation that has kind of occurred over the past few months has impacted the way he's thinking. And so just to start off, the first question I want to ask you, Nick, so we started talking about a building project. Mm-hmm. We finished a campaign not too long ago, and we were on track to start a project and break ground for a new kids and youth area, and then all of a sudden 2020 hits, COVID is rampant, and we go from talking about a building to not having anyone in our building. So for you, how did that impact, the way you were thinking? Was it stressful, or did it, come as a big disappointment for you, thinking that, a lot of what we were doing then was going to impact your ministry?
Yeah, right. So I think you go from conversations with kids about the new building and everybody gets fired up to you go to nothing at all, right? And so we were able to move what we did on Sundays online, but it's kind of funny that most of the questions that we received from our kids was, what's the deal on the new building? Mm-hmm. When are we going to have the new building? What's the new building going to look like? Are we still going to do the new building? So it is. You begin, I think, when you hear about and you start to see the plans for this new building, right? You start to interject things that you want to do going forward for your ministry in this new space. And then when you come back and you realize that new space is not there, right? And then it's kind of dialing that back down, and you're still future forward thinking to a new space, but yet you're still operating in an old space. And so you're building something with an eye to the future, but yet keeping an eye on what you're doing in the present. So it's different. But man, we're excited.
Yeah. So, thinking about having to do some of the things online, everyone, here at the church was having to figure out how to do what they were doing online. And there's still, I think, a level of how do we, engage online, whether that's with adults or kids, regardless of what ministry it is. But for you, what were some of the challenges of trying to do kids ministry online?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that when you're in person, you get an automatic feedback of what you're teaching, right? You get responses, you ask questions, and when you move that to an online source, it's not quite the same. You don't have the engagement from the kids, so you don't know who's gathering what from what stories, if they're even watching the stories. I mean, there's so much out there that kids can get themselves into. I think the hardest part and the things that we're having to walk through is trusting that they're getting something from the story, right? And that God's working in their lives, and that they're enjoying what we're trying to do online. Because it's way different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what was, if you're thinking about the way you got to do ministry before, and then the way you're kind of doing it now, the way that, hopefully we won't have to continue doing for much longer, but it's something that is very much an unknown. But kind of thinking back, what's one of your favorite things about doing children's ministry, and is that something that you are missing right now?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think the thing that I missed the most was teaching in front of the kids, right? Like being able to be goofy and silly and move around and dance around. And so I don't get to do that online, but yet I still get to teach somewhat. Luckily, too, I have a wife that is fantastic with kids that can remind me that kids always don't want to know the Greek terms for certain things. And so one thing that has been really beneficial during this time that we've done online has been the fact that she's been able to kind of wrangle me in to say, hey, we're doing too much. Let's dial it down and let's go back to what we did when we started this thing and make it more about the kids and less about me talking. So that's one thing that we learned from COVID carrying into what we're going to do on Sundays is taking that, right, and not making it so much about me, which is hard because I am wonderful.
Yeah.
That's not true. And bringing it more back to Jesus, right, and just giving them what they need and letting God do the rest. I don't need to compel.
Yeah, yeah, and thinking about that, you know, I think for a lot of different ministries, it was kind of looking back and the way I've seen this is, you know, how do you find what the core of what you're trying to do? How do you translate that to something that's online? And you know, it's hard. We we had struggles about, you know, how we did, you know, the services, first and second service online, and so, you know, even I had struggles of how do I try to capture what you would get in an in-person gathering,
Right.
and put that online. And I think that different people like Rod and Jared, you know, you've got Josh McNall or Daniel, Tracy. I mean, everyone's trying to figure out what does my ministry look like if it's online, but it also gives you a time to reflect and plan for the future. And so it's been, in some ways, I think, beneficial to be able to take a step back.
Absolutely.
To have the time, you know. So thinking about that, you go from being in the building, you know, 5-6 days a week, being with kids, you know, for hours and hours and hours, and all of a sudden, you know, you're at home with your family more. You know, did that, you know, time, the 2 months and some change being with your family, did that change the way that you thought about what you did here? Did that impact the way you thought about maybe other families, or, you know, what parents are going through?
Yep, absolutely. That's perfect, because it is very similar to what we just kind of talked about, because I think, right, your time, there's so many things out there that you can get invested in online, especially, right? There's so many different things that pulls your attention. And I think the thing that we learn the most is our job is to get the message out there to families and kids, but to do them in a timely manner. You know what I'm saying? Like, we have a video and we have a few things that we want to say. And I think we learned that online our time is precious because it's very easy to scroll right through. So what we learned was, let's just put it out there, make it concise, get to the point, and then, right, let the kids get something from that. And then we've always opened up the door if they had questions for us that they could reach out to us, and we've answered questions on Facebook Live and all these things. But I think the biggest thing that we took away from this is to not draw something out, right, but to make it concise and to the point, and then let's move on, and we can answer questions from that point on. So, yeah, that was good.
Yeah. So, you know, piggybacking off of that and some of the other stuff that we've talked about, you know, what are some of the things that you're looking forward to? You know, not just thinking about what's been impacted, what's changed, or what's been disrupted. You know, a lot of people throwing that around, but what do you think will be better, or what do you think about the way you're thinking will you know, make things better going forward?
Yeah, that's good. You know, I'm obviously excited about getting families and kids back in the building and the communion there. But I think one of the biggest things that I'm looking forward to is what we do midweek wise. I think one thing that this gave me an opportunity to do, and I got to reach out to some people, but I've never been 100% like, this is what we want to do on Wednesdays. And I've been able to ask some people about what they've done and what's worked for them. And I think we've come up with something that is super exciting that's going to be way different than what we've ever done. And that will actually lead up into a very big summer VBS. So next summer, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think, that was one thing that we really, and I say we, Morgan and I got to really commune on and figure out, man, let's take this time and make Wednesdays or midweek big. And how do we do that that's not been done before, that we haven't done before? And so we came up with some cool stuff that I think is going to draw new people in, both on the kid side, but I think also on the volunteer side. I think I think people are gonna, when we announce it, I think people are gonna really be intrigued about what we're about to do. So it's gonna be dope.
Yeah. So thinking about that,
can I say dope? Is that fair?
I mean,
it's lingo.
I'm not gonna police anything.
I didn't know how that worked here.
No, there's no script. You can whatever word comes to mind within
we can
reason.
edit that out.
I mean, we're PG. I think
right.
I can say that. So
all right, sorry.
So thinking about some of the things you get to do differently with whatever it is, maybe midweek, things that can lead up. How do you think that will coincide with anything that we get to do in the future with, the building project that we're planning and, that campaign that we're still doing, we're just not talking about it as much, obviously. And we're, as a church, we're still thinking about, the timing,
right,
but knowing that we're still moving ahead. We're still thinking about the building and everything like that. How do you think, the changes or some of the things you're wanting to do in the future are going to coincide with that new space?
Yeah, that's good. I think it goes hand in hand. The thing that we want to do on Wednesdays really is going to end up taking a bigger space, because we're going to get crazy and creative and we're going to move around a lot, and it's high energy. And so the space that we're hoping, and when it comes through, is going to be perfect for what we're going to try to achieve through that Wednesday. The thing that we want to get away from is school, right? You go to school and then you eat and then you come on a Wednesday and it's like, wait, this is school all over again. So what we want to do is take that away and use this building and all the space and all the energy that's going to be in this building and the lights and all this stuff. And that's going to be a big function of what we do going forward on Wednesdays. And we're going to use it to the max. And I think also, right, you just have a building that speaks to kids. To be able to utilize something that just speaks in ownership to your kids is magnificent. And I think it's going to have huge impacts on our ministry. It's something that they can walk in and be like, this is my space. Doesn't look like the doctor's office that I just got through on Thursday. This is my space. And I think that's going to be huge. I think, we, as we re-enter and things start to get back to normal, and, when all of the whole COVID-19 thing is, over with, right,
and we can walk away from that, I think people will have a newfound respect for space. There's so many people that want, they want to get back together, but, I think, and we invested a lot of time, energy in how we, kind of developed some of the areas of our space in the worship center.
Right.
And I think, for a lot of adults, it's easy to think about the space they're going into when they come in on a Sunday, but you don't think too much about, well, what kind of space are the kids going to be in?
Right.
And that's true for our younger kids and for our older kids. And, for me personally, I mean, the space I work in, I have made it the way I want to, with the things that I've got so that I feel like when I'm coming in, I can work and be productive and creative. And I think that for our kids too, it could be a huge thing for them to be able to walk in and not only feel ownership over the space, but to feel like it's something that was made for them to come and experience God.
Absolutely.
So, thinking about that, if you think about some of the things and I think you've been able to articulate, some of the things that get you excited about, worship or studying, the Bible, have you thought, what can the Grace Kids ministry do with the space and with the time to, help foster that same level of excitement for their relationship with God and the Word? You've alluded to some of it, but is there any more that you've thought about?
I think it gives them, right, we use this building on certain days of the week, but I think when you have a new space that's specifically designed for a group like our kids or our youth, it gives you a space that you can commune on a Tuesday or a day when it's not being used, right? And it's a space where kids or families or whatever can come in and still engage God, but in a unique way. I think it's hard to do it in a generic space, but when you know that there's a space out there that you can come into at any time and commune with God, I think that is it excites me about what this new space can mean. It's a place where I can meet with someone on any day of the week, kid, family, whatever, but it's like what you said, there's just something about the aesthetics of something that can draw things out of people when you feel comfortable. And I think, like with you said with your office, I think doing that and giving a place for people to experience that is going to be big for our kids. Our kids are still understanding God and Jesus and the Bible, and it can be overwhelming, and to give them the space where they can come in and still encounter that and ask questions and be guided through is very exciting. And I think that's one thing that we need to make sure that we use this space in a right way for, not just for set days that we offer something, but to keep it open for continual communication.
Yeah. So if you think about that and think about, what can that space be used for? Have you thought about, here's some different things that we could do that we don't do now, that we could do in the future, that maybe, the space we have limited us in a way. Has any of that ever, crossed your mind? Or
I think more in like a unique, fun way, probably not so much on a spiritual level, but I think, man, when you have that new space, there's things that you can do, game nights, and, I have plans for some fun stuff aesthetically too, that pool tables or foosball tables or whatever, video game night, that it just doesn't feel the same when you walk into this building behind us or whatever. But yeah, I think there are going to be some fun, just off the wall things that we can use this for. Yeah. It may not seem spiritual in the moment, but I think when you bring people together for community, neat things happen, right? Even in a water balloon night or whatever.
Yeah. I think, it's important to realize that the church, when they gather, that has impact. Absolutely. When the kids gather together, that's impactful. Absolutely. And I don't know if any one of us can really comprehend, what that could mean for someone. And it's good to balance, the importance of Scripture and, prayer, your relationship with God, and all of those things, but to also say that, to teach kids that when they come here, it can be something that they can look forward to.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And I think for any anything that we're doing here at Grace, I think it's important as we're going forward to realize that every time we come in here, it doesn't necessarily have to be us sitting down and doing a Bible study, or listening to a sermon, but we could, begin to think of, things that we can do that are engaging for not only the people that are already here at the church, but engaging for people who, have never been to Grace, or they don't know what Grace is about. And so we're giving them a taste of, we, in a way, it's a Grace family and coming together and, having that time. And so I think, I'm glad you're talking about some of this stuff and thinking about these things, because I think for our church going forward, these are the ways that we can grow and start to draw more people in. And, who knows, maybe years down the road, we have to, get more space because the building's not big enough, or we have to think of new creative ways to do things to engage as many people as, are here. So, thinking about all of that stuff, what, if you, could just sum up in a phrase or anything like that, what are you hoping for the kids when they come back, and what are you hoping that they start to get that either, you were building the foundations for before, or, hey, we're moving things a little bit, and this is my hope because of that. I want kids to be able to experience or do or XYZ because of what we're going to do going forward.
That's cool. I like that. I think the hope is that when we come back and kids come back and everybody is whatever normal will look like, but my hope is that we create a space where they can encounter God in their own unique way and timing, be it on a Sunday, a Wednesday, or whatever. But I hope it's also a space, and I hope that what we do going forward allows them to come up with their own, it's almost like their own faith, right? It's not their parents' faith. It's not their grandparents. It's their own, right? They're asking their own questions. They're engaging in their own way. And my hope and prayer is that we can create a space for them to encounter that in a unique and challenging, but a fun way, where, like what you said, that they look forward to coming back whenever that may be, that it's not a chore, that it's man, I really want to come back here and do this or be a part of that or whatever that looks like. But at the same time, that they are challenged in how they look at the world and what they see, and that they begin to ask questions about Jesus and God and the Bible and the stories. And man, all questions are good. And I think that's kind of what we want. We want a space where they feel comfortable to engage in things of that nature.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, if you make it, and you talked about this at the beginning, but if you're making it less about you and more about, how can I create this environment or this atmosphere? And I sometimes, I think about, any kind of spiritual journey. It's like a garden, and there's things that I can do to help cultivate that relationship, that journey. And, there's God, the Spirit moving in that is what's going to make the difference. I'm just trying to set the tone, whether it's with someone else or myself.
Right.
And, I think too many people put, that stress of, I got to make sure that I'm telling them the right things, or I'm saying the right things, whether you're talking to kids or whether you're, talking to your friend who doesn't know Jesus. And if you put all the burden, if I don't say it right, or if I don't present it right, then it's all going to get messed up. And I think it elevates what you're doing too much, and it doesn't give God the room to grow, but it also doesn't give that person the space to be able to find the questions and the answers for themselves. Absolutely. So that they can take ownership. You talked about not their parents' faith, but their own. Right. And I think, you not only have this, kids having ownership over the building, but having ownership over their own faith. So, we're not trying to, you don't want to separate what the building is from what their faith is, but you also don't want them to be, too close. It's this like tightrope sort of situation. But, I like that you are like thinking about those things and talking about those things. And I think it will, make a difference for kids that are coming back.
It's good. I think one thing that we've learned is that our job is like what you said, our job is to put the things out there in the right way, but I can never compel somebody, right? I think God and the Bible and Jesus and the scriptures are compelling enough to do the work, and our job is just to give them that space, like you said, to be able to meet him there, right? And then let God do all the compelling. My job is just to create the space, and then let God and those kids figure it out between them. And that's one thing that I've had to learn, probably the hard way. I'm going to shout out to my wife on that one, who kind of brought me back down to that. But I felt like I had to be the one that compelled. It's not my job. My job is not to compel. That's God's job. And so that's been humbling, but also I think will be rewarding for our kids going forward.
So, we talked a lot about the kids, but, is there anything that you think about some of the things that you're wanting to do, some of the things you're hoping to do in the new space or just to do in the building going forward? Is there anything that you are hoping to be able to do with the parents, as they begin to return, families begin to return, whether it's a single mom or, it's a couple that's got 3 kids or 1 kid, is there anything that you're hoping to be able to do for them, and the part that they play in their child's spiritual journey?
I think this building is also going to give us a space where we can equip parents to feel comfortable and confident enough to talk to their kids about the Bible, right? I think we have people that don't, and myself included at times, where we don't feel like we're qualified to talk to our kids or answer kids' questions. And one thing that we want to utilize this building is to give parents a space where we can meet and talk. And we've talked about doing some fun classes or some fun seminars about the Bible, and to just kind of give parents confidence to be able to take that into their families and to talk to their kids and hopefully give them confidence to answer questions. And that to me is exciting, right? I think equipping our parents to feel that way so that they can start to be a part of their kids' journey as well, right? I see these kids a few minutes a week, and parents are with their kids 24 hours a day, essentially, right? And so they're going to be the ones that spend the most time in their kids' journey, and I want them to make sure that they feel like they can do that and do it well. So we're going to use this space to be able to equip parents to do some things that we may not have done in the past. Outside of that, I have no idea.
And if you're thinking about, here's things I want to do for the kids, and here's things I want to do for the parents. There could be some people that are listening or watching this right now, and they might not be in either one of those camps, but they might be a volunteer, or maybe they've thought about volunteering. What are you hoping to do for them? Or is there anything that you want to say to those people right now?
Yeah, man, I think for anyone that's interested in volunteering or that is volunteering with us right now, that I think the message there is just to jump on board and hang on, and it's a ride, but man, it's fulfilling to be a part of what kids are trying to accomplish in their own lives, and to just have your hand in that, to know that you are creating something for them eternally. When you understand eternity and what that means, and you have a hand in that, I think that's compelling enough to bring people in to start volunteering and to start be a part of what's going on in these kids' lives. Man, volunteering in Grace Kids is not difficult, right? You're not up there giving a dissertation speech or you're teaching them Aramaic. It's really just being present and being Jesus here on earth for them, a smile and a hug and a handshake or whatever we do when we go back. And it's just being an ear for them to listen. And I think sometimes it's all these kids need, and that's all we need. And so my hope is that if you have any any inkling of desire to join, that you get in contact with me and we'll walk you through it. But it's fun and it's exciting and it can be challenging, but I think that's good. We want to be challenged in that way. So yeah, it's good. Join us, please.
Yeah. And there's, there's tons of awesome volunteers that we have.
Yes.
I think a lot of them going into that volunteer position, whatever it was, I think there's been plenty of them who didn't realize what an impact it would make on them, and just thought, well, I've got an hour a week, I can invest in this, and didn't realize what it would do for their own, spiritual journey, their own relationship with God, in the way that would impact them. And I think, that's true for anyone that does anything with kids ministry or youth ministry. It's, it's not always about what can I give them, but it's what we're doing together.
It's good.
And
it's good.
It's, serving is something that God calls us to do. And we all get the privilege of being a part of. And so, don't think that, well, I can only volunteer if I have kids, or if I have something to offer them, because if I don't have anything to offer, like Nick said, it's sometimes all the kids need is someone just to be there and to be present, and to be able to walk through some of these things. Even if it's something as simple as just reading a verse or playing a game.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, with all of that said, is there any message that you want, to let people know, maybe it's just hold tight, or, we're still here, we're thinking, we're working. Is there anything that you want to tell anyone that's listening, or any kids that are listening right now?
No, that's good. I think the one thing that I'd like to remind our kids is that I know it's looked different online. It's not as intense as it has been on Sundays for us, and intense in a good way. But man, we're thinking about you. We're planning a lot for when you guys come back, and we're going to have a lot of fun, and it's going to look different. It's going to sound different, but man, we are more than excited to see you guys. It's been 3 months plus, probably, at least. And so we miss you guys tremendously. We miss the Sundays, and we miss just seeing your all's faces. And I'm excited to get to that point, and excited to see how much you guys have grown, and all the questions that you'll have for us about the building and what we've been doing, and all the questions we'll have for you. So, I think what you left 3 months ago and what you're going to come back to is going to be good, and I think it's going to be exciting, and I hope you guys are ready, because I know Miss Morgan and I are ready, and man, we're gonna rock out. So be prepared. Yeah. It's gonna be fun. I promise.
Well, with all of that said, I thank you for taking the time.
Thank you
to do this. I hope that there's plenty of people listening and watching who hear that and are excited about what we're doing, and realize that even though there's some things we maybe don't talk about as much, we're always working. I'm working on stuff behind the scenes that people don't know about.
Big shout out to this guy over here. This stuff that you see and what you see on Sundays, and man, that stuff doesn't happen without this guy right here. So, man, big shout out to you and what you've been doing. I don't think people realize how much you've been working during this quarantine season. And man, if you see this guy, give him a shout out, because he has worked tirelessly to make you guys present on Sundays, and man, he's the man. So big shout out to you.
Well, I appreciate that, and shout out to everyone listening and watching. I've seen some good numbers. I've been encouraged by that, not only in the building, but our sermons online, these videos, and so I encourage you to continue to persevere. If you want to follow us online, you can follow Nick he has a Grace Kids page, and you can find that on Instagram and Facebook. I can't think of what the handles are.
They're both different, so don't ask me what they are because I can't remember them ever.
But you can find those. You can find the Facebook page linked on our Facebook page, GCC Bartlesville. You can also find us on Instagram and YouTube. You can always find us, Grace Community Church, at gccbartlesville.org. And we will talk to you all next week.